You know what's going to be brilliant about this is that I didn't take my ADHD meds this morning.
Thank you everybody for joining today. Welcome to the second of the kind of POW Digital Festival. We had a wonderful conversation with Liv Little last night, and this is the second thing that I'm doing, and I am so excited for it. Today, I'm going to be speaking to some truly wonderful people about neurodivergency in the arts. Before we get going, a tiny bit of housekeeping. POW is a charity which is providing as much free content as possible over the next week or so. And if you are able to make a donation, there is going to be a link in the Zoom chat. So please do that if you are able to. So today I am talking to three truly amazing artists and creatives who use their practice to raise awareness of neurodivergency in women and non-binary people. We're going to chat about what the public can do to support people with invisible and or chronic illnesses, as well as neurodivergence, and emphasizing that your diagnosis, whatever it may be, does not equate to your worth. And this is kind of under the umbrella of POW's theme this year, which is joy and celebration, two of my all-time favorite words. And so this is kind of about like exploring the joy of being neurodivergent and seeing it as something that can add so much richness to your life. These artists are also going to tell us about their exciting show, which is happening at the Pie Factory in Margate as part of POW this year. So I'm going to introduce the wonderful people we'll be speaking to. First up, we have Lucy. Lucy, do you want to give everyone a wave? Hey!
Hi.
So Lucy is from Neurodivergent Friends of Thanet, which is a community artwork, visual artwork, like space. And they like, it's just a really wonderful series of like workshops that connect neurodivergent adults and reflect on what the joys of being neurodivergent are. So we're going to be chatting to Lucy in a little bit. Next, we have the wonderful Marion. Marion, can you give us a wave? So Marion is from Invisible Women, and it's a collective showcasing visual art responding to like Marion's journey of being autistic and neurodivergent. Marion received her autism diagnosis in her 70s, which I think is a really powerful and fascinating thing. And we're going to be chatting about that a little bit later. And then finally, we're going to be hearing from Melissa, who sadly is not feeling very well today. So she's not joining us in person, but she sent some stuff for me to read out later. Melissa is a practicing artist and facilitator. She brings to the exhibition a collective of artists exploring and visually representing what it's like to experience chronic visible illness, celebrating the joy of the human body and educating ways in which to describe the body. And she does this by using cast of the body to raise awareness of societal stigma and educating how to describe the body with words from affected communities. So first up, I just want to check in with both of you, Marion and Lucy. How are you doing today? Marion, should we start with you?
Yeah, I'm fine. I'm well, nervous and excited, really. I haven't done one of these before. So yeah, and it's good, and I love an opportunity to talk, because I can talk till the cows come home, especially about autism and art.
Well, these are two wonderful topics, and we're so happy to have you here. And I always think about like nerves and excitement really sitting very close together, like they can kind of interact with each other and sometimes feel a bit like the same thing. So I am all here for that feeling. And Lucy, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. It's exciting to be here and to be talking with you. I've been meaning to like meet with you for like months. So it's a pleasure to actually be in a room with you. And excited about the exhibition that we're putting together and the POW Festival and bringing more inclusion for neurodivergent people in Thanet, really.
So first of all, I just want to have a moment to celebrate the name of this exhibition, which is called The Indescribable Joy of Finally Knowing Who I Am. And the first time that Amy told me that was the title of the exhibition, it made both of us like tear up. It got us like really, really emotional. I just think it's so beautiful. And Marion, I'd love to hear a little bit more about the painting of this, like the painting that you've created, which it's named this, and that's why the show is named this. What was the inspiration behind that?
Well, a moment won't be long enough because it's actually about my life.
Yeah.
I mean, as you know, you've already said I wasn't diagnosed until I was 72 when I got a diagnosis, but I lived my entire life not really coping, hanging on by my fingernails, and not knowing why, and feeling a failure, and struggling. And I now know that an awful lot of other people were feeling the same, but I didn't know. But when I got the diagnosis, I thought, that's it, I know about autism now. But once I got my diagnosis and got the validation that comes with that, I started understanding myself. I started getting, I have insights into the life I'd lived. So, and the thing is that, I mean, when you're painting, you're expressing yourself, but how can you express yourself if you don't know who you are? Yeah. So that's what that painting is about. The painting itself is quite brightly coloured. It's sort of turquoise and pink, and it's got gold on it. And it's just such an important moment in my life to start to understand myself. And I will say that I did study art when I was young, and I've always loved it. But since my diagnosis, my art has changed because I am now expressing myself, and I'm enjoying it so much.
I'm curious about how. So you said that you were studying arts at a younger age. Was there like, have you always been making things throughout your life, or has there been kind of like a gap?
Yeah, I've always loved making things. But I studied art when I first left school. I went to art college. I went to Hornsey, and I allowed myself to be discouraged. So I gave up painting for many years, but it left a hole in my innards. There was always this hole there. So now I'm able to fill that hole. So that's really good.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing that. I feel like pink and turquoise and gold is so up my street, and I'm already excited to see the exhibition. And now that those colours, I'm like, I am there.
I just appreciate how the different colors we are wearing, how nice it looks with the three pictures together. Like there's just so many colors. I love it.
And we didn't plan this. We're just wonderful people. Well, yeah, I think it's such a fitting title for your piece, Marion, but for like the whole show. So I hope you feel proud and happy that that's kind of like encapsulating everyone's experiences, because obviously when we're talking about neurodivergency and art, everyone's experience and approach is completely different, but actually trying to unite them all together, I don't know, the indescribable joy of finally knowing who I am. I just can't think of a better way of doing that. So thank you for your wonderful art and your wonderful words. Next, we've got, this is a question that I asked Melissa, and she has sent over her thoughts. So I'm going to read them out to you. It's going to like an audiobook. I wanted to ask Melissa about the prep for the exhibition. So a little bit of behind the scenes stuff and the kind of reality of this making. So Melissa says, it's had many ups and downs due to the chaos in a chronically ill body and life in general. It has been difficult to manage. I was diagnosed with a rare brain condition in 2018 called idiopathic intracranial hypertension. My dyslexia, very proud I got that one out, which is also known as IIH, where symptoms include migraine, pulsatile tinnitus, severe spine pain, and optic nerve swelling. My art practice is all about visualizing these symptoms to raise awareness and help others to understand what it can be like to have these invisible symptoms. One of my main triggers for IIH is stress. So I've had to be mindful that I don't take on too much. But of course, that's very hard to manage if you're passionate and you have a vision. As an artist with chronic illness, organising other artists with chronic illness has its unique challenges and difficulties. Overall, you want to be flexible and mindful with deadlines due to the unpredictable nature of the human body that has a chronic illness. But when the body takes over, deadlines go out of the window. And in turn, this can cause a lot of stress, which isn't good for anyone, let alone chronically ill people. I haven't organised a show since before my diagnosis, so I've been learning how much I can do with my new body. And sadly, it's not as much as before, so there's an element of grief for my previous body on top of everything else. My part of this exhibition will be tackling topics such as obesity stigma in collaboration with a group of women from the IIH community, and celebrating the joy of folds and curves in the body. As well as myself, another artist, Danielle Radway, will be exhibiting her first artwork about chronic illness to the public. Danielle wasn't an artist a year ago. We are sharing her journey into her first exhibition at the Artist Talks next Friday, and how we have both found art as a way of coping with the changes to our body. And then she finally says, looking forward to seeing this show come to life and celebrating the joy that art brings, which is such a beautiful sentiment and really honest and raw and emotional. It's sad that Melissa can't be here because she's written such beautiful words, but I would love to hear them from her own voice. But also I feel really proud of her for recognizing when she's not well enough to do something. And I think that kind of links to her answer. And I think everyone, regardless, it's especially important if you're someone who lives with a chronic illness, but almost regardless of that, there's so much that we can all learn from that, of not, especially if you're passionate about something, or if you're feeling a bit of like pressure, whether that's good or bad from other people to get things done, there's that particular force of like pushing yourself harder than you can go. And I always admire it when people can recognize that.
I think there's something so important to notice from that. So when you're late diagnosed, whether it's, Melissa with her different rare illnesses or neurodivergences, we spend a lifetime of masking or putting on to our body and our mind way more than it can take, out of social pressure, out of thinking this is what we need to do. Well, not thinking this is what we need to do to be accepted, because less is unacceptable, and especially unacceptable because not understood, because you don't know what it is. You don't have the words to explain it. You're to yourself first. So, or you force ourselves into cycles of burnout, on and on and on and on and on. And I think one of the most important thing for me that I've been trying to implement since my diagnosis, and it's probably the hardest thing to implement, is to truly honor my needs and be unapologetic about it. And it's really hard. It is really hard. And because, my own internalized ableism, because society's ableism, because other people's expectations, because the massive lack of understanding and knowledge that we have, like there's like a general ignorance. And I say that like it's a heavy word, but that's what it is. It's like, for literally an ignorance of these topics, in the mainstream knowledge of the world. And navigating that is so hard, but I'm so proud of Mel for honoring her needs today and last week, so she can actually be with us next week, and if she cannot, she's done so much already. And I think that's one of the biggest learning for me so far is, and whether you're disabled or not as well, I think we are humans, and we're not machines. And even machines need rest, right? I mean, I love the analogy of the Formula One car. If you keep it running for too long, the wheels are gonna go off. You're gonna probably run out of fuel. Your motor could like take fire because it's too hot. So even machines needs rest to function, right?
Yeah. It's that kind of old pesky capitalist mentality coming in of being like, we should never be able to rest. Like, why haven't they invented like humans or cars yet that just run forever? And that's not sustainable for just, creating an environment where you're feeling neutral, but especially if we're adding joy into the mix as well, that's not an environment where joy can thrive. And
so I think it's one of the blessings of getting a diagnosis. I think you have to kind of retrain yourself to start putting yourself first, and to recognize that if it's difficult, then you don't have to do it. There's so much to relearn, so much after a lifetime of trying to keep up, trying to, I mean, it's like living without knowing why you're different. It's a bit like having a different sat nav to everybody else, but your one takes you to the wrong, gives you the wrong directions. If you get lost following the wrong directions, you blame yourself. You don't blame anybody else. You blame yourself, and you spend I spent my entire life blaming myself and not talking about it to anybody. And it's it's so liberating to be able to share that, share those things that I was so ashamed of because I was failing, or I perceived myself as failing. Like the times I used to have breakdowns, but they weren't breakdowns. They were autistic burnout, that I didn't know that. And like the time that I was going to work and I just couldn't go through the door. But what I actually did was I got to the roundabout and I went round the roundabout and went home. And the reason I'm telling that is that I was so ashamed of that. I thought I would never share that with anybody. I'd never tell anybody. So now I make a point of sharing that whenever I get a chance to speak, because it's so important. Because after I did first share that, I started to get people saying, "Oh, I've done that," and that moment, that was when I started healing, to know that I'm not the only person who's ever done that.
Yeah.
And it's difficult to explain that to anyone who hasn't experienced it. I think that possibly a lot of people that are listening now know what I mean, and have maybe done it. But that it's so important to stop blaming yourself.
Yeah, and finding people who you can talk to about this, and that's what this project seems like it's all about.
Finding communities, like it is like such a huge part of that healing process. I think one of the things that to come back to what Mariam was saying, when I first started to look into to know like how autism and ADHD for myself manifest in people, and seeing like the lived experience of people sharing online their experience of how that looks like for them. The very first few times I've been confronted to that kind of content, I felt really, I don't know how to describe it, but it was really unsettling, because I thought, that person is living at the very other end of the world. I've never met them at all. And they are describing a thing that I've done my whole life that I absolutely never told another soul. How is that possible?
Yeah.
Exactly. And when I started to put one and one together, and I came to my own conclusions that, yes, I'm actually autistic, and yes, I actually have ADHD. The next thought out of that was, I don't like the word crazy, but that's the word I had at this time, is, oh, I'm not crazy. I'm just very normal for someone who happens to be autistic and has ADHD. And the third step was to try and find community, because finding people who understand my perspective, because I spent my life, 31 years of my life, constantly feeling misunderstood. And that's so hard. And the first meetup that I ever hosted, completely improvised, was one of the best day in my life, if not the best day of my life, because I had other people who, whatever I would say, whatever I would do, would look at me and be like, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Or finishing my sentence will be like, yes, I know. It's just stop going. I know what you're talking about. Oh my God. I'm like, yes, that, oh my God, finding that community is so important. So important.
We all need that in our lives, of those spaces where aspects of ourselves are seen and we don't have to explain them necessarily.
Yeah.
And that's what you're doing with this exhibition as well. Like, I'm so thrilled that this is such a big part of POW this year, because there's been so many conversations kind of bubbling away about neurodivergency, particularly with women and non-binary people. And I just love that you're both showcasing your work and talking about it. So yes, thank you.
I just wanted to say, one of the things I was thinking when I was thinking about doing this discussion was that although I came up with the title, the indescribable joy, that's only one part of the experience.
Yeah.
There's probably joy on some days and grief on others. It's just an ongoing process, and it's not just, I've got a diagnosis, everything's okay now. It's very far from that. And it's kind of a long road, really. That's what I wanted to say. It's not so cut and dried as that.
I thought that this theme was a bit of a challenge in some way, because I think, especially, I don't think it's not, I think maybe everyone, whether late or not late diagnosed, but there's such a need in our community to find each other and to find validation through the experience of each other, and discussing everything that's wrong about society and how we're being treated most of the time, most of our life. And it's so important as well. And we need to be very public about it, and things need to for things to change. But it can get you into kind of a negative cycle mindset, where you just keep going into that kind of negative space of, the world is awful, treating us awfully, and we need to fight against that. And as much as it is true, it can be just as destructive to go so far into that. And so I found originally the theme quite difficult to come to term with, because I thought, am I going to find people in my community who wants to talk about joy and celebration when their daily life is a struggle?
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
But at the end of the day, there is joy and celebration. There is joy of knowing who we are, and there's a need to celebrate who we are.
Yeah. And almost the harder it is to find that, the more important it is to do.
Yeah.
It's so easy to see the words joy and celebration and make them feel kind of superficial, of just like not looking at all the difficult things.
That was also my worry, I think, for, like, how am I going to communicate that to my community without them feeling unacknowledged, you know, for their struggle. And there's also, there was that question, I think when we started, you know, talking about this exhibition, there was the question around, we need to use this space and this exhibition as a way to raise awareness, as a way to educate people as well. But while we do that, how do we also keep these concepts and these ideas of more positive and light things and joyful things, and, you know, and the fact that this is a celebration of who we are, not just a punch in the face of, hey, look at us, do something, come on, you know, like as much as it's needed.
Well, that anger is so important as well, Marion.
Oh, anger. Yes, I have a rage about my life. I do have a rage at times, you know, that it was so tough. But what I was going to say was what I've been saying to the other people, the other artists in the group, is it's up to us how we interpret that. You know, it's not about, you know, waving balloons and streamers. It's about our lives and how we interpret that. And I know one of the artists did say to me, she said, I'm recovering from a really traumatic time, and I can't shoehorn my experience into joy and celebration. So I said, well, you know, just interpret that as you wish, and it's ours, it's for us, not for other people to judge. So I think that's important, really important.
Yeah, that's really, really important to say and center. There's something around kind of performative joy of like who you're doing it for, and that it being kind of present for an external audience. And everything that both of you are saying, this is so like within the community and so like thought through of what that means and what that looks like. And I'm sure that is expressed in the exhibition. So, and we've got a couple more questions. And the first thing I want to ask is just about like what does the future hold for you?
Yes, right, okay. Right, well, I am passionate about sharing information and understanding about autism. And what I want to say is that fortunately, I'm very pleased to say that there is a lot of recognition of it now. There's a lot on TV. There was the wonderful Chris Packham's program recently, which was excellent. But what I see is that so much of it is about children and young adults, and that has to be shown. It's important. I'm not knocking that in any way, but I don't see anything about my generation. I don't see anything about those of us who have lived our lives without knowing who we were. And that is my passion to make that, because I think that there are a lot of people, as Debbie says, the lost generations, who I think there's still a lot of people out there who are suffering in the way that we did, and they don't know why. So I really want to expand that. I would love to see a representation, say a drama or a documentary about an autistic pensioner. I have never seen anything like that. And I think I might have to write it. I wear a badge that says autistic pensioner, please be patient when I go shopping, because people don't expect me to be autistic. They don't expect my generation. And I think we are the last generation. Autism's always been here. People have always been autistic. And they suffered so much. I mean, I'm thinking of my wonderful dad. He was autistic and he never knew, and he had such a tough life. Wonderful man. But we are the last generation that will have to do that. And it needs to be recognized. It really does. So yeah, that's the future for me. And of course, carrying on with my painting, which I just love doing, and working with my colours, and people laugh at me and my colours, and yeah. My little granddaughter did a drawing. My little granddaughter did a little kind of caricature of me, and with a speech bubble saying "colour, colour, paint, paint," and that sums me up. It's absolutely wonderful. So yeah, that will be me. It'll be colour, colour, paint, paint.
Thank you. And Lucy, what about you? What does the future hold for you?
Oh, sorry. Before that, I just wanted to add something, because like one of to circle back to, you know, neurodiversity and the arts, which is originally the title of this talk this morning. One of the things that I found is, since, you know, I've learned about my own diagnosis and kept learning, and I keep learning about what it means for me, what it means for others, etc. I keep, obviously it's not like something that you should be doing, or at least like you can do it, I guess, in your head if you want to, but like, you know, like you're like, oh, that person, like that person, the way they're talking or the way they're expressing their point, like maybe they're autistic, or the things that they're talking about, you know, kind of like tells me that perhaps they're neurodivergent. And I think within the arts, there's probably like a lot more neurodivergent people that we think that there are. And there's so much of creativity that we see in the world is coming from neurodivergent people, and it's not acknowledged because it's not known, or people themselves don't know about their own neurodivergency. And one of the things, when I first started to learn about myself and how it affects me, is I thought, you know, my whole life I've been told you're so creative, and like, oh my God, how did you come up with this idea? Like, it's such a creative idea. And I've always struggled with owning that creative title, in the sense that, I mean, I do use it, but I've always felt a bit like an imposter about it, because for me, it's like, whatever solution or whatever thing that other people tell me is creative, I'm like, I just picked it up from the floor. Like, I just saw it right in front of my eyes, and then I just told you what it was. Like, it's not like I scratched my head for hours to find that creative solution. It's just the way my brain works and connects dots and connects the thing together that come up to that solution, that your brain doesn't allow you to see that thing as clearly as I see it. And for your brain, it looks like incredibly creative, because it's so different to how your brain works. And so one of the things was to ask myself, is there such a thing as creativity? In a sense that, just as much as, is there such a thing as disability, you know, and that's a whole other topic, but the way we describe disability is often from a able body and mind perspective. So the way we describe creativity, where is it coming from? Is there, and that was like, it's the conversation that I have ongoing in my head, you know, about that. I just find it fascinating, and obviously I think there is creativity, but at the same time, yeah, coming back to the people who are neurodivergent and who do creative things, like, yeah, myself, I always had that kind of imposter place where I'm like, am I creative? Like, you know, kind of feel like a fraud, in the sense like, you're applauding me for my creativity, great, but then like, I didn't do anything. I just saw something that you just can't see. But yeah, as per, sorry, your second question, which was what's the future holding? At the moment, we are trying to set up a CIC for Neurodivergent Friends in Thanet. So I started Neurodivergent Friends in Thanet in March last year, pardon me, on my own. Really not intending to do a big thing out of it. Like, it was literally like quite a selfish act for me to find my peers. like just throw a meetup on Facebook and, you know, see if people come. But the response has been just so positive, and I was like, no, there's so much more that needs to be done, and cannot sustain that on my own, absolutely not. So I found some other neurodivergent people local who have joined with me as a collective of people, and we're trying to set up this CIC so that we can actually bring more events to Thanet in terms of like creative workshops and social events for meeting our peers and just be ourselves and have a good time within our community. Create community, basically create community and belonging. That's what it's all about.
It really is. I love that. And for those people who would like to find out more about Neurodivergent Thanet, sorry, the name of the organization.
Neurodivergent Friends in Thanet.
I knew there was a friends in there. For people who want to find out more and want to come along to potential like future events, where's the best way that they can find that?
So you can either, if you're on Instagram, you can look us up at Neurodivergent Friends Thanet. If you're not on social media, you can go on Linktree /Neurodivergent Friends Thanet. We're also on Facebook at Neurodivergent Friends Thanet. And finally, we do have a private Facebook group for people who are living in Thanet or surrounding and wants to be updated and find their peers as well, which is also called Neurodivergent Friends in Thanet. How many times have I said it? I'm not counting anymore, but I think it's in the head of everyone now.
I love it. And Marion, is there anything, if people want to find out more about your work or anything else, is there somewhere people can find that?
The only thing I have at the moment is my email, but people are welcome to contact me on my email, which is should I give it to you? It's Marion, MARION T Armstrong @yahoo.com.
Just like a thank you to POW Thanet, who has been really like doing so much to be as inclusive as possible with us and supporting us and anything that we needed and any delaying deadlines as we needed. And there's, you know, it's beautiful to see that other organization are really trying hard to, like, not everyone is like, you know, not everyone is not bothered, you know, there are actually people who are bothered and who are trying, even if they're not personally concerned by something. So it's beautiful to see that our community as a whole in Thanet, there are a lot of people who really are trying to make things different and to challenge their own bias, challenge their own knowledge, to try and do better. So really A+ for that effort that everybody should do, but A+ for that. So yeah, really happy with it.
Thank you so much for both of you, for your time and for your wisdom and enthusiasm and passion. This has been such a gorgeous way to start the weekend and to start POW as well. I feel very nourished and inspired talking to both of you. Let's end with a big thank you to POW, to all of the people behind the scenes who are making this and all of the other events happen. And I just want to say to both of you, Marion and Lucy, but everyone else who's watching right now, have a really great POW festival. I hope that you enjoy it. Let's make the most of it. And we will see you all again soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.